This is Isaac Rowe, student number 99243491 with Emergency Planning Assignment 1 presentation. Aims of this presentation are to provide a detailed analysis of planning systems used by the public services when developing plans to respond to emergency situations, a thorough explanation and analysis of the importance of such planning, and to deliver an explanation of the priorities and the courses of action considered by the public services during the planning of emergency exercises. We start with a quote from the JESIC website. It is now imperative for the emergency services and other organisations involved in emergency response to embrace and integrate JESIP until staff follow the principles and use the models as a matter of course in the early stages of an emergency. Now, you're probably wondering, what is JESIP? JESIP stands for the Joint Emergency Service Interoperability Principles. Interoperability means the ability to work for military equipment and personnel to work together. JESIP has 5 principles. They are co-locate, communicate, coordinate, jointly understand risk, and shared situational awareness. Co-locate means to co-locate with commanders as soon as practicably possible at a single, safe and easily identified location near the scene. What could go wrong without these principles is commanders arriving at the scene can take too long to make contact with commanders from all other services or don't make contact at all. This leads to poor information sharing, lack of communication and no joint understanding of the unfolding emergency. What should happen is responders should identify and meet with who is in charge from each other services. Identification of lead officers is made easier by the use of incident commanders' habards or equivalent uniform marking. Radio interoperability talk groups should be established and used to aid communication, whether or not commanders can physically co-locate. Communicate. Communicate is about using plain English without any jargon. Without commanders being able to liaise with their peers and share what they know about the incident, what risks and hazards have been identified, they cannot coordinate responses and formulate an appropriate response plan. Misunderstood concepts and terminology are frequent stumbling blocks. Use of service-specific jargon, acronyms and abbreviations can cause confusion and delays. What should happen is commanders need to ensure what they're sharing is understood by everyone. They should use commonly agreed language, terminology or map symbols to communicate. They should avoid ambiguity by providing factual information rather than subjective statements such as likely, possible or probable. Using the common model for passing incident information between services and their control rooms, which is called Methane, it's on the JESIP website, commanders can ensure all services have the same information about the incident. Coordinate. Coordinate is agreeing the lead service, usually the police force, but in some instance, for instance, biohazard, it will be the fire service. This means they can identify priorities, resources and capabilities for an effective response, including the timings for further meetings. What can go wrong is if commanders don't share information and coordinate their efforts, there's a high potential for misunderstanding about the response and resources required. The response is likely to be disjointed and has the potential for duplication of effort, even for one service inadvertently impeding the activities of another. There may be delays in responding to casualties or bringing emergency under control due to this. What should happen is by talking with commanders from each service at regular intervals, commanders can ensure that they have the most updated information and can formulate a response plan and regularly review it for effectiveness. The most appropriate resources can be deployed to ensure the most effective multi-agency response. This leads to less loss of life. Commanders should use the joint decision model to help plan an effective response, also found on the JESIP website. Jointly understand risk by sharing information about the likelihood and potential impacts of threats and hazards to agree on potential control measures. What can go wrong is commanders may not be aware of the different risks and hazards facing each organisation at the emergency. The different emergency services will have unique insights into the risks their staff are likely to face while responding to the emergency. Services individually assess risks but do not share this information with peers as they do not consider the risk is facing their peers. This could be the ambulance service, for instance, having a casualty with a broken back and the paramedics need to move them. They've identified that, but then the fire service comes in and tries to move the casualty from the scene. That could potentially stop that person walking for the rest of their lives. What should happen is results from either individual or joint dynamic risk assessments are shared with all commanders so that all risks, threats, and hazards can be fully considered and understood. With a common understanding, priorities can be agreed and control measures can be put in place as part of a jointly agreed working strategy leading an integrated multi-agency operational response plan. All information and decisions made should be recorded in decision log. The final principle is shared situational awareness. Shared situational awareness established by using methane and joint decision model. Without sharing all that is known about an incident across all agencies and an uncoordinated approach to a response, there is potential for inappropriate and duplicate resources and capabilities to be deployed, resulting in ineffective rescue and treatment of casualties and inadvertently exposing staff to risks. What should happen is commanders should have worked together by now to formulate the most effective response plan possible using all the information known about the unfolding emergency, which comes into play with all the other 4 principles, including threats and hazards, relevant powers, policies, capabilities, procedures, as well as the resources available from all agencies. So what do these principles achieve? If the principles are followed, then the results should be a jointly agreed working strategy where all parties understand what is going to happen, when, and by who. This strategy should include what are the aims and objectives to be achieved, who are they by, for instance, the police, fire, ambulance, or partner organisations, when, so timescales, deadlines, and milestones in the emergency, where, what locations could they be, why is this the rationale, is this consistent with overall strategic aims and objectives, and how are these tasks going to be achieved. On top of that, you can have a incident action plan at the scene of an emergency. So this is a link that helps the command staff, assisting agencies, and promotes a unified command with set goals during a major incident. IAP also provide a paper trail for any inquiry or review of a major incident. In most cases, IAP will prove that the services relied on proper planning rather than blind luck to aid the incident, and no warning signs that the incident may get worse were ignored. As the IAP is a document is written by those at the top of the command chain, no communication is lost or interpreted differently at separate levels of command, giving all those involved a unified objective rather than if there was no plan and different levels of command told separate teams to do separate and unrelated tasks. Lieutenant Phibbs said the IAP is a pathway for organisations to create response objectives, advance appropriate strategies, increase buy-ins and engagement from all stakeholders, and build community resilience. That was in 2018, just after it was introduced. So, major incident response plans and courses of actions considered by the services. What are the courses of action in a major incident? Nottinghamshire Constabulary states the Civil Contingency Act 2004 requires to start with formulating a plan during a major incident. Some primary objectives of these plans, which are the first part of the plan to get filled out, are to save and protect life, relieve immediate suffering, contain the emergency, limiting its escalation or spread, provide the public and businesses with warnings, advice, and information. As far as reasonably practical, protect public health, property, and the environment. Protect the health and safety of responding personnel. The most important two of those are to save and protect life and to protect health and safety of responding personnel. But most incidents will sort of pick and choose from the other objectives depending on what the hazards are. So what's next? What comes after the plan? Bronze commanders from each service will inform their subordinates of their part in the plan, whilst receiving and transmitting any updates to and from their superiors in Silver Command. Silver Command can update and change the plan as they see fit and receive information about resources and regulation from Gold Command and manage these resources at a major incident. Gold Command handle logistical information regarding the incident, for example, how many police officers can be spared and sent to the incident. Using this process, the plan can be followed out with flexibility to change quickly and effectively as it needs to, while still providing common objectives for all responders. Although an emergency is often unforeseen, exercises can provide training for staff, allowing them to get used to the type of incident that could occur for real at any time. So the emergency services will send their staff on for instance, a fake road traffic accident and see how they respond to it, tell them how they should have responded to it, and hopefully if this happens in real life in the future, they will respond better to the real incident. The government website says organisations should test the effectiveness of their emergency plans by carrying out exercises and should ensure that staff involved in the planning or response to an emergency receive appropriate training. Training plans should also consider other people who have a role in the emergency plans, such as contractors and civil protection partners. The plans themselves should explicitly identify the nature and frequency of training and exercising required. Here are my references. I hope you enjoyed the presentation.